Hello.
Dasha partnered with me and the other curatorial staff and several other people at BIMA. It takes a village, it takes many departments, and we're just so honored to have been able to help produce this retrospective with the Washington Foundation. And for those of you who don't know, we had many meetings over the course of a year. This idea has been going on since before COVID. I was talking with Dr. Laverne Hall about it, and it just took a while to pull the show together, but we're really thrilled and honored. We do honor the art museum contracts. We're very lucky to be able to borrow works from Seattle Art Museum and also Tacoma Art Museum, and also WASAC, the Washington State Arts Commission. So ArtsWA is the acronym now. Thank you all very, very much for coming. And Dasha, thank you so much for all your help. I'd also like to note that Carletta Carrington-Wilson, who's here, and the program that she coordinated with Jenna, our lead in education, was really, really successful and wonderful, happened recently. And Esther Ervin, who has coordinated today's presentation with Jenna. Jenna's out ill, so I'm stepping in for her. But I just want to give a very, very special thanks to both Carletta and Esther, because they stepped in and helped us with two very big roles. Carletta with a lot of kind of the history and the spirit and feel of Dr. Washington and the kinds of elements that we could help to enhance the show with, and Esther taking the lead to coordinate with, I think it ended up being 28 artists in residence were available to help enhance the show. So I want to give a round of applause to them. And also Dr. Laverne Hall for her leadership, and the entire board and volunteers who also helped with all the meetings over the many months. And we could not have done this. We talk about producing a show. We're really facilitating. We're not the experts. We become pretty good over time and learn so much and then become curious about so much more. But we could not have produced this without the history, the knowledge, the love for both Dr. Washington and Janie, their legacy, and what the foundation was intended to do and what is ended up doing, and all the information they were able to give us. So I want to give a round of applause to this amazing nonprofit board that we're so lucky to partner with. And now we'll go to the land acknowledgement slide. I'm not going to read this out loud because I think most people can read it, but the intention of the land acknowledgement is to really honor the history of the tribal lands we're on. What I would like to say, and this is a little more of an updated version, is how lucky BEAM has been to be able to partner with the Suquamish tribe over the years. We've had 3 major indigenous artist shows involving artists from the entire Puget Sound region. Actually, the Salish Sea region is what we've decided on with indigenous shows. And it's artists who, their tribes may not have been from this region, but artists who live and work here. Again, BEAM is about the art and craft of the Puget Sound region, and we've needed a lot of help and guidance to learn about more artists, learn about more histories and culture, and we've been very, very fortunate to have had this be, again, just like the Washington show, a living legacy that we're doing so much with. In 2026, Craft in America is a national partner organization. They've declared 2026 to be the year of craft. And Sheila has been working, and many of us at BIMA, on a plan for handwork, which is what they've named it. And Robin Saigo, who is our main liaison with the Suquamish tribe and very involved in many things, and also Miranda Belardi-Lewis, who has helped guest curate before, and she's a professor at the University of Washington. They are collaborating with us to produce an Indigenous craft show. So stay tuned for that, and we're really looking forward to it. And I think I've given, we'll go back to the welcome slide, but I think I've given most everything I'd like to say. And what I'd like to do now is to introduce Esther Ervin. I know many of you know her, and she's been pivotal in not only the entire show planning. I know that Esther's besides being an artist in residence in the show and helping us so much, she's a former board member with the foundation as well. So Esther, why don't you come on up and take it away? Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. I'd like to thank Greg for that very nice introduction. That is a list of the sponsors who have supported this and other exhibitions. And I'd also like to thank all of the staff of BEMA for their support and give a bit of recognition to the bistro staff who took very good care of us as well. Yes, this is a very apt quote from Susan Noyes Platt, Art and Politics Now. I think you can go ahead and read it on your own. So our first artist to present her work will be June Sekiguchi. She was an artist in residence at the foundation in 2012. And she makes sculptures, installations, public art, and is an independent curator. She now lives in Tacoma and curates the gallery of the Asia Pacific Cultural Center. Stewart Wong will also be presenting right after June. Stewart Wong is an artist who lives in the Central District, and very recently he has been specializing in the art of kapa, which is an indigenous Hawaiian art that's very intensive because you have to harvest your own plants, make your own tools, and he'll be very happy to share the process with you about that. So, okay, June, come up here and take it away.
Okay, thank you, Esther. I'm just so honored, really honored to have been part of the residency, and then that Esther invited me to speak with Stewart about our experiences. So mine was in 2012, so quite a long time ago. So I wanted to share with you what I was doing at the residency and then what I'm doing now. So fast forward. But I wanted to compliment the curating team upstairs. So the middle of the show, I think you've probably all seen it by now, but the middle has Dr. Washington's work and then the artifacts that he collected. And then he's kind of surrounded, embraced by the residents, like this loving embrace, and Dr. Washington is at the core and the heart and the center of it all. So that makes me feel so good. So anyway, I wanted to give you a little bit of background about me that leads into what my mindset was for the residency. So I use a scroll saw typically in the studio, so I can cut really highly intricate patterns, and that kind of came from my further background. So I was born and raised in Arkansas. I was we were one of the few Japanese families in the area, and so I was raised in cultural isolation. And I also want to make a point that that's the little bit of connection to Dr. Washington. He spent time in Little Rock, and so there's an Arkansas connection. So anyway, my mother at a certain point had a gift shop called the Silk Road, and she imported things from all over the Silk Road regions, and that was kind of the beginning of my interest in pattern. So all those items that she was selling had pattern on it. So that became my kind of like, since I was a teenager till now, my quest for pattern and patterns from all around the world. So at the time of the residency, I was getting frustrated with, being so heavily just locked into pattern, and also frustrated by the material I use, which is flat sheets of wood. And I would cut the pattern into that. But they were flat, and I could make geometric forms or layer flat things, but I was getting, frustrated with that. So I residency to, just shake it up and do something. The beauty of the residency is to have that time and space to be supported to create work. And I'm going to speak more about the residency because to me it is like the highest that an artist can, the highest opportunity an artist can have by having that support of time and space. And so when I was going into the residency, I wanted to do something completely different, not do pattern, not necessarily do the scroll saw. So I decided to not twine. So in the residency, we were allowed to use anything that was in the space. So it could have been Dr. Washington's supplies that he left, or previous residents' works, or not works, but just raw material and raw material. And so there was a large spool of twine, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna, not do what I was regularly doing, and so I just snipped little short sections and tied it onto a longer section. So I did that as kind of a meditative act every day, and I knew at the end of the 30-day residency I would have kind of a lot of material to work with, but I didn't have any idea what I was gonna do with that material. But what I noticed was happening, and I'm going to show you something. This is my little show and tell. So what I noticed was happening is that these twisted pieces of pine needle knotted, not pine needle, they looked like pine needle to me at that point. So when I pulled it up, it's like, oh, this is like a Fibonacci pattern in nature. And so I was still like gravitating to pattern. And so rather than trying to reject it, I realized I can just embrace it. So not try, and that was my natural tendency to go towards pattern. So that was kind of like an aha moment for me in the residency. So then I was trying to figure out, so I'm going to take you down a process of how I work and think. So I needed to figure out a way to support those, what I call pine needles. And I thought what makes sense is a pine cone. So I thought I could thread the, the pine needle-looking things through the scales of the pine cone. And so I was going down a rabbit hole of, researching about pine cones. And then, so so the pineal gland in the geometric center of your brain secretes melatonin and regulates your circadian rhythms, and I'm a poor sleeper, so that resonated with me. So those are the things like, oh, that makes sense to me, so I'm going to go down that rabbit hole. And it's also, with some cultures, it's considered the seat of the third eye, the seat of enlightenment. It's the third eye. So what I did, I settled on the Douglas fir pine cone, because if you look at it, there's a serrated scales alternated by scalloped scales. So I thread it through, and this is my scroll cut pine cone scales. And then I threaded the twine through that. So that's a detail. And then it ultimately ended up, I was commissioned to do a piece for the Bellevue Arts Museum, biennial in wood. And I call this pineal canopy. And I commissioned young artists to do this dappling light, kind of create this sense of dappling light through the forest canopy. So that's 8 strands that are 15 feet long, and that's 36,000 knots. Later, I recruited friends and had a pizza party to knot the twine with me, but there's quality control, and it wasn't quite good enough. So then this is what's upstairs. I call this natural tendencies. So it speaks to this natural tendency I have toward pattern. And then when I deinstalled it from the BAM show, I had released one end of the hanging thing, and it was vertically now vertically strung, and I was very excited. I wanted a chance to show this vertically, and so sooner than later I got an opportunity to do this at the Beacon window. So thank you, Greg, for that opportunity. And I brought in with me a huge roll of paper that was gifted to me, and so I'm just sharing what different things I did during the residency. And so this cut pattern, is mimicking the knotted twine. So it just kind of shows how what you're working on at the moment is kind of reflecting other things that you're working on. And so what I'm holding there, at the time that I was in the residency, Trayvon Martin was murdered. And, it was a shocking experience. And here I was in James Washington's studio, and, his work was in civil rights activism and racial justice. And here we are, like, this is happening. And so it was just shocking for everybody, but it just was like, God, unbelievable, as we all feel. So I took he had some printing block letters, and I used that for, trying to honor him in some way. And then later on, I worked on this plank of cherry wood, which I found it in the studio, and I drilled in holes, Black Lives Matter, and so that is upstairs also. And the name Trayvon is backwards, as if it would be for printing, but also kind of like reflective of the backward nature of our society, and what losses we've suffered, and that our society is not going forward anymore. It just keeps going back. So this is just to honor Trayvon Martin. And then now I'm going to fast forward to this year, so to show you what work I'm doing at the moment. So, 2012, that's like 13 years ago. So a lot of work has happened, and development and things like that. So this is my last solo show at ArtX Contemporary, and it came from 2 artist residencies. I did one at Vashon Artist Residency and one at Willapa Bay. And this just kind of reiterates the importance of artist residencies for artists. And so I'm so honored that the James and Janie Washington Foundation has, made this residency a reality for artists. So I'm so grateful. And because Vashon and Willapa Bay, it's on the Washington coast, it's both near the water. So I was very inspired by these sea creatures and radiolarians, which are, single-celled organisms that freely move through the water, but they're just resilient creatures. The show is called The Geometry of Resilience. And some more pieces. And I'm very honored that Greg Robinson has supported my work and has one in his possession, and Jane Carlton as well. So thank you so much for that support. And then I wanted to do what I think is fun. So I had this in my show, and it was hanging, and we couldn't do change the configurations. I wanted to change it like all the time, and I didn't have a motor on it to change it. So I'm going to just go forward and do a stop action, and then back, just to show you how. I mean, this was fully intended to be reconfigurable. So. And then with the scale of Lauren there, you can see how big it is. So when it spans out, it's like 14 feet in diameter. And then when it's standing up, it's like taller than she is. So that was just, thank you for entertaining my, because I didn't get to do this at the show, so at ArtX, so I get to do it here. So then I've been doing public art. So that's kind of been the most of my practice lately. And so I've had these have been in the works for a long time, but they're just kind of like rolling out now. And this is in Redmond. And I wanted to share just how the convergence of things that come onto my radar and what I'm thinking and trying to conceptualize this piece all kind of happen to make sense to me. So this is a condo complex in Redmond, and it's adjacent to Marymore Park. And it's named the Piper, named after the Piper willow, which is native to Marymore Park. So I kind of locked on the idea of the willow leaves. And then I always had this quote by Toni Morrison: "Birth, life, and death each happen on the hidden side of a leaf." And when I was working on this, I want to show you this slide. So these are morning cloak butterfly eggs that have laid their eggs on, or the eggs on the leaf. And the willow is one of the leaves that they lay their eggs on. And when I saw this on Facebook, it's like, oh my gosh, pattern. And this is a thing of nature, but it looks so mechanical. And this is like after the larva has left the egg. And the egg would be a more white and spherical, and then the larva has left, and then it collapses and turns dark. And so it's this kind of form. So I want to go back to this. So the white ones, those are the butterfly eggs in the on the willow leaf. And I knew that if I painted them dark, they would disappear from a distance. So I made the decision to paint them white so you could see them. And then this one just was installed this summer in Portland, Oregon. If you know the North Park blocks, it's there kind of down from the museum. And there's a brand new hotel called Cambria Hotel. And they commissioned this entryway piece, and they wanted a water piece. And so it's right next to the entry outside. And so just to give you a background on public art, usually there's this committee that has, they've talked amongst themselves, and they have certain things that they want to have the artist address or consider in the concept of the design. And one of the things was to celebrate the indigenous culture, and that's the Chinook tribe. And they are a very strong tribe. They are unfortunately not federally recognized by our government. And at one point, when Clinton was president, he gave them federal recognition, and then Bush came in and took it away. So all this time, they've been fighting for that still. So it's another case of the state of our country. But so I wanted to honor the Chinook tribe, and also they wanted, one of the prompts was to, celebrate the natural beauty of the Pacific Northwest. So I settled on the sword fern as my metaphor. And then when I was doing my model, it looked like these little leaflets looked like, a crew, rowing crew. So, a boat. And so I kind of I like that idea. And then to honor the indigenous tribes, this is a Chinook paddle end. So there's a notched out end that's like classically Chinook. And they were a canoe culture because of the geographic location on the Columbia River and the tributaries running into it, and a very powerful tribe because of their location, and they were in trade, doing trade a lot, and just in a very strong position. And then this location where the hotel is in the North Park blocks was where the Japanese American community lived. They didn't come back after incarceration, but it's in close proximity. And I was trying to figure out, this is the Japanese pattern, and I was trying to figure out what is the commonality between Chinookan culture and Japanese culture, and we are both fish-eating cultures. So I decided on the kind of stylized fish to go with the water pattern and the Chinook canoe pattern, paddle end. That's just to give you kind of what I think about when I'm trying to design something. Oh, here's for scale, before the water, some shadow pattern. And then this is another piece. So on the 15th of this month, we're dedicating this piece. This is in Issaquah, and Issaquah is my Washington hometown, and that's where I raised my children. And I was really hoping to get this commission, and luckily, happily, I got it. And then I had this tremendous amount of pressure on me, a burden like, oh my God, I've got to really do something good for my community. And so I put a lot of pressure on myself. So it's a very interesting process of, how you're connected to the site and what kind of pressure and burden it puts on you. I felt it a lot. It felt like I needed to live up to something. And Issaquah is not, there's no shortage of any celebration of the settler colonial history. If you've been to Issaquah, it's like Gilman Village and the dairy, all of that. And so I wanted to bring it back to honor the indigenous Snoqualmie tribe. And in the entire Coast Salish regions, the western red cedar, they call it the mother tree because it's everything. It's their housing, transportation, their clothing, their utilitarian crafts, and their art and medicine. So it's everything. So it was an easy thing to land on that idea. And then when I was kind of going down my rabbit hole and researching and really looking closely at the western red cedar, what really got me was the leaflets of the leaves. If you look really closely, and I should have had a slide of that, but it looks like a braided structure. And so that really interested me because that's a pattern. And then when I looked at the cones, they're, like a 1/4 inch for this huge tree. They look like a rose flower, a rosebud. And so that's why I kind of landed on this form. So there's the kind of cone in the middle, and then these are the leaflets. And then I made this column because with my material, the flat sheets, when you're looking at it on edge, it disappears. And so I wanted to make the structural form. So it's all kind of artistic license and changing it up. So this is in a brand new, newly designed landscape. And so the idea of this project was wayfinding sculptures. They wanted me to pull the viewer through the space from one pedestrian park to the senior center. And so these are kind of wayfinding things. So they kind of relate to each other. So this one's more horizontal with the 3 cones on top. So you can recognize something that's familiar, and then you see something else, and there's that kind of familiarity. And then there are 3 smaller, I call them reveal sculptures. So they're just in the landscape as you walk through. So that's one. And that's another. So there's 3 of them. So there's 5 total. So those are my recent things. So I appreciate your time. And and I get to introduce Stewart. So thank you.
Aloha ae komo mai kako. Hello and welcome everyone. Hello and welcome everyone. It's my native language. I'm from the island of Oahu, Hawaii. And before I think I want to give you a brief introduction of how I became acquainted with the Washington Foundation and my relocation from my native land to the Pacific Northwest. I relocated here in '82, and I went to pursue a bachelor's in interiors, and that was in 92, I think, when I finished the program. But during my time at Cornish, I also wanted to pursue my first solo art show. So I was kind of doing both the degree program and working on my first solo show. And once I got my degree in interiors, I relocated to the Central District in '89. And when I got settled in the neighborhood, I had to familiarize myself coming from Hawaii, and that was quite a transition then, coming from Hawaii to the Pacific Northwest. Part of relocating to a new neighborhood, you walk the neighborhood, and so I spent many times walking the neighborhood and getting to know the neighbors, and that's when I had the opportunity to come across the Washington's residence. So this image is showing the sidewalk that I walked in front of the home, and And so that's one day, the Washingtons were out, and I was passing by, and I waved hello, and that was my first encounter with the Washingtons. And little then did I know about Mr. Washington and Mrs. Washington. Little did I know about them, and didn't realize how talented and how diversified his interest is and was. And then fast forward, I got familiar with the artist circles in Seattle. Now that I am pursuing an art career, so I decided not to pursue an interiors degree, but to pursue a fine arts career. And in the artist circles, we get to meet other artists, and we support each other. We learn to support each other and attend their events. And so that's how I got acquainted with the artist residency program, attending the open studios from artist friends. And so that's how I got connected with the foundation. And Esther came along, and that's how I got into the residency program when I approached Esther about the program. And so here I am today. I've accomplished the residency, and I am still continuing my residency today. This image here, that's me standing in the doorway. And along the right side of the entryway are floor-to-ceiling books, art books. And that's a treasure trove behind that wall. And then that image on the right are some of my cloth, Hawaiian cloth, kapa, which I have produced during residency. So the kapa making interest started in 2022. The residency, I didn't start the residency until 24. So this is inside the Washington studio. This is just a part, a corner of the studio where I have some of my work laid out. And you can see that I have some of my bark making tools and implements laid out. So this image here I thought was really important because of my native lands that I'm from here. And so before my residency, I had started genealogy work and research, and wanted to learn more about my paternal family side. And as I gathered information from my mother and relatives about my family, I became aware of what life was like living in their time, considering colonization and exclusion laws in place at the time, in their time, considering and the effects of it on my ancestors. During their times, the craft traditions of Hawaii, which properly pronounced Hawaii, were in decline. In 2022, I decided to explore the craft of kapa making to cultivate awareness and acknowledge my Hawaiian cultural, ethnic craft traditions and heritage. It became a way to reach out and connect to the Pacific Islander communities here in the Northwest. I also wanted to contribute to restorative work. Kapa making drastically declined since colonization and the introduction of cotton in Hawaii. The cloth was very integrated in our way of life before Cook landed in the islands. I was aware of kapa as a child, but never really learned how to make it. Never really was aware or had the knowledge of the amount of time and labor and work involved. And harvesting the plant, which is the paper mulberry plant, which in Hawaiian we call it vauke, and for kapa making. And so this image is showing me, I made a trip back to my homeland and got together with a practitioner, and we made kapa together. And so this is her grove of the plant, the paper mulberry plant, vauke. And here I am harvesting my vauke to make kapa. So part of the responsibility of making as a practitioner is that you grow your own plants, you make your own dyes, you make all your own tools. There's me beating the inner bark after I had processed the stalk of vauke. You remove the outer bark and use the inner bark. And there's a photo of me beating on a stone with the wooden beater. So the craft process of kapa making parallels Mr. Washington's spiritual, physical connection and reverence to the natural environment and materials, including the healing and transcending value of art upon our human spirit. So here, beating the vauke, inner bark fibers, I established a symbiotic relationship and a codependency and connection between the land from which the plant grew, the vauke plant, myself, the maker, the tools and dyes produced from nature, and the recipient of the cloth. This next image are showing the examples of all the tools and implements that are made by me, the maker. So before I ever get started making the cloth, one needs to make your own tools, make all your dyes, in order to make the cloth. So these are examples of some of the tools. You see the wooden beaters up at the top there to the right. There are liners, tools to draw lines with. There are stamps to the left. The stamps are they are all the stamps and the liners are all made from bamboo, and they're carved. And then their dye is applied to the stamps of the liners to create your patterns. At the top, the very top right above there is the shark tooth knife. The shell on the anvil is what I used to remove the outer bark. Bamboo stamps are in the round or linear. The bottom left here are the single liners. They're like what I've done here is I've taken a skewer and I split the tip of the skewer and then wrapped it. Next, this is located at the Washington's, the foundation's grounds. This is looking north, and there's a large granite boulder in the property. And there are many stones on this property, being that George is a carver. So I saw this granite boulder. The scale and the form drew me to it. I wanted to touch it. It inspired me, and I wanted to pound kapa on it. Next, I'll show you a video. The video contains several Hawaiian sentences and words. They are translated as Oli Kahea, which is the chant, requesting for entry, acknowledging one space. And it goes, "Here I stand in Seattle with respect, ready to accept my responsibilities. Please heed my call." And then next will be followed a hakumele, which I will be reading, which is the poem. And in the poem, there are words, Hawaiian words. They are hoho'a, which is a round wooden beater, ili'iho, which is an inner bark fibers of the vauke plant, and pohaku, which is a stone, and mana, which is one's inner life force. So I will advance it to the video, and I will be reading the poem. Kumai al isiaro eho ihi emalama inna kuleana emaliu mai In a place where once a spirited maker dwelled, its keepers permissioned me in. I call upon in Oli, acknowledging the stone's shaper's place, heeding to whom that came before me, the stone shaper, who took mallet to chisel against stone. Stones, so many stones, as if yearning to be touched by its shaper. My thoughts slow as I ponder about the boulder before me. Its presence seems to lure me to it. Oh, a shallow dip at its side, as if the shaper intended, womb in spirit, had led me to it. Now, to a wet boulder cleansed, my hand touches and feels what once belonged to another. With ho'a and ili'iho in hand, tap, 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 the rhythmic beating of my ho'a to ili'iho against pohaku. Tap, 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 am I in rhythm with the stone shaper? Tap, 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 thrust of the beater to bark against stone. Feeling what once belonged to him. The stone shaper's mana is as if to flow through me now. And what about his relationship to the natural and spirit world? I pause for a moment to think upon the stone shaper who once stood in place where I am now. Next is an example of my kappa. There are two techniques. One is the carved bamboo stamped pattern, and the other style is lapa application, which is hand-drawn using the liners. So this is ohe kapala, the stamp technique. So this is an example of ohe kapala work produced in 2023 for the Seattle Arts and Culture Hope Corps grant. These are all the natural dyes that I produced. The yellow is from the turmeric. The brown is from the bark of the acacia tree. And the black is squid ink. The other way of obtaining black is a kukui nut, the kernel of the kukui nut. The kukui nut is smoldered, and we collect the fumes, the soot from the kernel. So these are the cloth, the example of one cloth style that I make. This one is on exhibit right now at the Wing Look Museum. So here's an example of, let's see, two different carved patterns. Many of the patterns do have a meaning to them, because typically these kappas are narrative pieces, but they also are representational and symbolic about an identity, identifies place and family. Many of the cloth is used in ceremonial, at birth of cradling, for newborn, and paying tributary taxes to the king. Some clothing, bed covers. As far as the number of practitioners out there today, not many practitioners out there making kappa. More so today, there is an interest in cultivating the interest, and because there's the annual hula festival on the Big Island once a year, and so the kappa cloth is integrated into the dances. And so that's one place to see great examples of contemporary kappa. But many of the great examples of kappa are actually overseas in the British Museum, which makes a lot of sense. Next, so here's the linear pattern of the ohekapala, the carved bamboo stamp. And next is the round pattern. This is an example of lapa work. So the pattern is drawn out with my liner. Lapa design work produced during the JWDC, so the James Washington Residency. So when I started the residency in 2024, that's when I created lapa work. So here's an example of a lapa. This is sort of the shape of a knife. So the edge of the lapa is inked, and you can either drag it across the surface or press it. Here's another type of lapa that's shaped with multiple tines, like a fork. So you can have a single liner, 2-liner, 3-liner, 4-liner, however many liners you want to produce. Next is samples of botanical dyes. So I make botanical dyes. And so this is showing some of the test samples of botanical dyes. So I produce my own botanical dyes I make to pigment the cloth are derived from flowers, roots, bark, nut kernels, leaves, and squid ink. Botanical dyes can be applied in so many ways. Back and front of kappa can be dyed different, unlimited possibilities. I was also experimenting in the residency with kappa. So I was thinking other ways of presenting flat work. So I thought about cordage. So I decided, oh, okay, I'll take a strip of kappa and experiment with it. So I started twisting the corners of the kappa. And that's what I came up with. And I thought, oh, that could be really great in numbers. And I had the idea of representing each strip as the number of stalks in a grove of Vauke. And each stalk represents our collective consciousness. And so the freestanding sculpture that I have in this exhibit is taking a different approach, working in and experimenting with kappa. I think of each kappa strip as a part of a collective, each shoot in a field of Vauke, each to its own contribution to the whole. The work is symbolic of the collective consciousness of the importance of revitalization and preservation of Hawaii's ethnic and cultural heritage. Materials are kappa, bamboo, botanical dyes, lapa, and ohekapala design. This is another example of lapa work combined with ohekapala. The background, I created first, dyed the whole piece one color, and then went over with the same color but a darker. And so that's when I drew multiple lines on the surface, and then I printed over the top of that with ohekapala. So this is both liner and lapa. And then this one here is strictly all lapa work. This is all hand-drawn, and dyes are applied. Here's another example of lapa work. So lapa work can get very intricate and ornate, involved. And so as you can see, the examples of unlimited possibilities with both the ohekapala and lapa work. And this is the last slide. And here's 2 more examples of lapa work. And then, so if you want to look to see more of my work, which I also do public work, installation, go to purplemoondesign.com. Thank you. Mahalo. Next, I want to introduce Esther Ervin.
I was an artist in residence at the James and Janie Washington Foundation in 2009. I'm in the midst of creating an artist book, Gardening for the Soul, which explores James Washington's gardening practice in relation to his spirituality. I'm also on the newly selected for the Washington State Public Artists roster, and I'm currently curating the sculpture installations for the Garfield Superblock project and a retrospective for the Black Arts West Alumni Association. I have another quote here from Susan Noyes Platt, Art and Politics Now, and I'll let you read that. So that is one of the pieces that I made from pipes that I found at the Washington studio, and I also found that peculiar shaped piece of metal somewhere. And so I put them together, and this is called Pipe Dreams because it's pipes wishing that they were something else. Another thing that I found at the Washington studio was the Edison recording machines. And so these are wax cylinders that are used for voice recordings. But I was looking at different areas of the studio and making color recordings of various areas of the studio. And the white blur at the bottom is because somehow the bass disappeared in translation. But that's all right. I can live with that. So this is a slide of me using the voice recording machine, and that's a tabletop version. There are also some freestanding versions over there, but I like the tabletop version because I could pick it up and move it around. Those were commonly made during the late 1800s and the early 1910s. Well, during the residency, I found this book that was deaccessioned from the collection, and that is an actual snail shell that I found on the curb in front of the house. These little things are scraps of wood that were left over because something was being built in the studio, and there were these just little pieces of wood that they forgot to sweep up or something. So I imitated the snail shell by carving these little pieces of wood. The book is carved out, and for some reason I liked this particular page from the book. So anyway, it's copper, and it's covered with glass and riveted shut. I can't remember exactly when this was made, but it was around that time. It's made from the door plate, and you can find those on the sides of doors in older houses. I also was inspired by Alexander Calder's very early works that he did as a child. And so this is an exploration of the type of work he did with pottery shards and wire. And he made things like that for his mother. This is a part of a series of sea creatures that was made. And these are all what you call coal connections. So I pierced the copper and the metal and wove wire through them. Those are about 19 by 19. This is another one. At some point around that time, I also did some other sea creatures. This is I call it the dangerous jellyfish. Dangerous because it includes glass shards, copper nails, glass wire, and that sort of thing, and gourds. And that's a type of weaving that can be done with wire or anything else. This is called River of No Return. Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is also looking back at one of Mr. Washington's experiences when he was in the ruins of Teotihuacan and found that stone that was spoken about that called to him. And so I was getting off the bus for work at what was known as South Seattle Community College at that time. And I was walking up the path, and I saw that piece of wood there. And I kept walking, but then I walked back and picked it up because I needed a bird for this piece of sculpture. So that is a piece of wood that I found that worked into the river of salmon heading for destruction in the wood turbine. Their migration is interrupted, and this is like one of the creatures that naturally benefits from the salmon run, it's the head of an eagle. So that's a computer fan. This is another in my series of gourd works. I believe it's number 4. This was inspired by the subprime mortgage incidents that went on some years ago. And you see the little trophies that they get from getting people out of their housing. This is also one of my earlier examples of felt work. So this is a felt fabric, and the face is rendered with a sweater that shrunk and pieces of roving, which is loose felt that hasn't been woven to work in the details of Mr. Greedy. This is called Polar Peril, and I think we recognize one of the culprits that has contributed to the melting of the ice. Too darn hot. This is graphite. And many of us older folks recognize the song Too Darn Hot that was written by Cole Porter in 1948. So that's the poor polar bear about to drown. This is graphite on artboard. I thought of the song of Neil Young, After the Gold Rush, and he repeats the line in his song that gives it an environmental undertone. Mother Nature on the run in the 1970s. That should ring a bell. So this is habitat loss. You see a number of creatures that benefit by living in trees. That's also felt on and I used a wool scarf that was in my collection, so I like to repurpose things so it kind of mimics roots and earth in a way. Jim Crow under the bald eagle. And that is inspired by a line from John Legend's theme song from the movie Selma. So yeah, the eagle is tied up while Jim Crow can go where he wants. This is a further reflection on Jim Crow with his girlfriend Katrina. Jim Crow represents the structural and deliberate oppression, and Katrina was a natural disaster whose effects were intensified by human neglect, racism, and poverty. So they belong together. This was also in a storefront, an Amazon storefront, and they wanted me to eliminate the news, but I said, forget that. This is a gun violence screen. So the little birds, I don't know how well you can see anything written on them, but the little birds kind of represent doves or that would carry the spirits of the dead up there. And the birds some of them have very large collections of tags with the names of the people who were killed in various gun massacres. And then the bottom, it's about hoping to erase gun violence. So I put erasers in actual bullet shells. This is the gun violence necklace. This is one of 3, and I don't own any of the 3 anymore because they were appreciated. I also did a series of work that relates to slavery. And this particular, some Africans were stolen from their homeland to apply particular skills on plantations in tasks such as weaving, metalwork, carpentry, and other things. So this is based on a style of pottery by David Drake, who was an enslaved potter, and he was also literate, so he inscribed the insides of his vases with verse. So I was, that whole series that was here at BEMA last year, or a year or 2 ago, was inspired by some of his work. I was inspired by another song here. The lyrics were by Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. And I wondered who Pagliacci was when I heard that song. So maybe some of you are familiar with the opera Pagliacci, very tragic, where he was a clown and he was being betrayed by his lover, and so he had to act all nice and clown-like on stage, but on the inside he was very angry. And so it shows the two faces of Pagliacci. And some of the lyrics are, just like Pagliacci did, I tried to keep my surface hid, smiling in the crowd, I try, but in a lonely room I cry the tears of a clown when there's no one around. This particular piece, had been reading the poetry by Paul Laurence Dunbar. And it's about, we wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile. With torn and bleeding hearts we smile. There's more to it. He wrote that poem, of course, about the plight of Black people, but many people in our culture have also to wear the mask, whether you're Native, African, or Caucasian, because society kind of makes us have to hide things. This is one in a series of 5 benches that I did for the Liberty Bank. They include an actual safe deposit box door from the Liberty Bank building, the basket weave pattern that was repeated throughout the building. There are 5 of those. This is one of 4 Union Street glass canopy panels that depict the redlined neighborhoods of the Central District, 6 redlined neighborhoods. Madrona, Mann, Harrison, Atlantic, Leschi, and the 5th one escapes me right now, but I'll probably know what they are. This is Salmon Against the Current. It was inspired by the James Washington Fountain of Triumph, which at that time had been removed from its site for renovation. And so both works I see as being representative of the struggle of Black and other minority people facing redlining in the Central District. And so I captured them on a rainy day. This is a piece that's on a commercial kiosk on 23rd and Jackson. I was invited to do that piece by the curator that works with certain development firms. This is another piece that I was asked to create by the same person. This is one of 2 that are in the Wayfarer apartments at Yesler Terrace. This was installed last year. And so this is the assemblage in 2016 of the artists in residence that were available to be photographed after an exhibit that we put on in City Hall. So we have from the back, Charles Parrish, Martha Dunham, Ellen Verdiner, Kristen Matix. In the next row, June Sekiguchi, Malpina Chan, Mary Koss, Esther, and Carletta Carrington Wilson. So the James and Janie Washington Foundation flourishes by community support. So if you can, volunteer, donate, spread the word. This is some examples of volunteerism that we've had. We had a tool clinic and paint party that Monica Street organized. And Monica was there, but I didn't capture in her this photo, but that's her dad there, Rich Street. And these are a couple of other volunteers. This is Lynn Hull's partner or husband, I'm not quite sure which, but anyway, they belong together. And this is a picture of Lynn Hull, who taught metalsmithing at South Seattle Community College. And I'm under something in the studio, painting something. Okay, so it can't be done alone. contact the Washington Foundation to volunteer or help out in whatever way you can. And so you can contact us via the information that appears up there.
I just want to have a Q&A, and also if there are questions from the audience, if you could just shout it out or raise your hand. I can see, I think, most of you. What I wanted to do was to ask the board members, volunteers, Jennifer, our emerging conservator who helped with a wonderful relief print upstairs, to please stand up, because I'd like all of you to receive a round of applause. Anyone who's attended the meeting, Cynthia Hibbard, our art committee chair and board member, if you could please stand up, don't be shy. And I'd just like to thank all of you. Laverne, you're a little shy. I see that the board members of the foundation, please identify yourselves. Thank you, Christina. So this has really been a big group effort, and I appreciate everyone. So what are your thoughts, and in no particular order, how, I know you've participated in other artist residencies and other projects. How is the Washington Foundation residency different from others?
So I've done a few kind of locally, and then I've kind of done self-directed ones abroad. And it's kind of like the feeling when we were gathering before the talk. Everybody was here. Dr. Hall was here. Carletta. I met Carletta at the, was it your residency? And that's where I met you the first, Malpina's or mine or someone's. Anyway, it was such a community feeling and such a good feeling, gathering today here. And it reflects what I felt from the residency, like this community building and different cultures coming together. So it was like everything to me at the time. And like I said about residencies, like the highest form of what an artist can receive.
What I liked about it is I think it gave me a chance to be alone, be with the time to be able to connect spiritually with the materials and with Mr. Washington's beliefs and interest, and being there with his materials, being surrounded by the materials that he's brought into the property. So when I was looking for ways to connect with what I do with what Mr. Washington does, it really gave me a greater sense of connection to the larger aspect of this person who is so involved in building community. And so it's one way of reaching out to the community by starting small inward and working outward.
I love the video footage of you pounding on the stone. I mean, what a way to connect. In June, you found this spool of twine, and you continued in the thread of your own work, but you really took it to a whole different dimension too. And Esther, you so intimately documenting the garden and different things.
One of the things that I found about the residency, there was being able to focus, without interruption, and it was pretty unique in the fact that there were things that we could use. I don't think any other residency offers that. You have to bring your own stuff. And also, it was kind of an introduction to the area, because I got to know Tim down the street, and he contributed some material for me to use during my residency. And he's he has a very eclectic collection of whatever. And also, yeah, some of those bullet shells that I used came from his collection. So, yeah.
I'd like to interject what Esther was saying, that Tim, who lives just on the corner of the block, and Washington is like 2 houses over in the block, and Tim's property is very inspirational because his work, the wall that he built, is so gaudy-ish, gaudy influence, all the tile work, gaudy. And so when you have little inspirations on the way to Washington's place, it's so uplifting, and so it's such a gift living in the part of town where CD Madrona, where my studio residence is. So I'm like 1 block north, 2 blocks west of the cultural center of Washington's home. So so it's wonderful just being able to just walk over there and be inspired along the way.
Are there questions from the audience that people have about? Yes.
I just have questions about the residency itself.
And excuse me, can everyone hear? Okay, go ahead.
Is there one a year, and is each one 30 days? And who decides, who chooses, and what kind of broadcasting does the foundation do to solicit applications? And what are the criteria?
The process, I believe, has varied over time. I believe Carletta. I think Carletta told me that you asked.
Previous to my residency in 2011, it was by invitation only. And then Susan Platt informed me that they were opening up for applications. And that's how I applied. So at that point, during Detweiler's time, people applied for residencies.
Thank you, Carletta. In my case, I asked Tim, could I have a residency? And mine was a little bit unique. Usually they're about a month long. Ramson Bustillo was there at the same time I was. So he worked in the upper area and I worked in the lower area. And we were both there for about 2 months. So I was kind of basically on the night and afternoon shift. I mean, it just worked out that way. And he was on the day shift, and it was cool because I got to meet some of his friends. And I think Stewart's case was rather unique too, in how he got to be a resident.
I knew I wanted to be residents there after attending other artists' open studio, and my capo work. This decision came along, and I thought, well, one of my commitments is to produce the work, and no better place to produce the work than in a residency. And so I thought, well, just up the street of me is the Washington Foundation, where I can just walk over. And I thought, well, who's going to be my key person to nudge at so that they would support my application, and where do I begin to apply for this residency? And so that's where I contacted Esther. This is Esther, we got to meet. And we did, and I said, Esther, I expressed my interest in residency. And she said, okay, apply. Proposal.
I think there are a couple of variables, not speaking for the foundation, but as the residency becomes more visible through experiences like this retrospective, there will be more questions in that. And I think just to contact the foundation, but also, and Christina, you could talk more about this. Christina, raise your hand so we can give you the mic. But the foundation has just received some very, very important national funding to help secure the facility, to make some important repairs to the foundation, and to do other things. The electrical system, I believe, is as old as Dr. Washington, and but there may be some period of renovation, construction, and things too. But Christine, I'd love for you just to say briefly the great advances the board's made in terms of securing some funding.
Yes, we were really fortunate. We've gotten two large and important grants of late, and one is from King County, and very generous for capital projects. And so pretty much for the next year, we're going to be re-leveling the house. We need to move the entire collection in the basement out of the house, store it temporarily, and then move it back in. And we're looking for volunteers for that. I'll put in a little plug. So that's the capital, and as Greg said, the rewiring and various projects, just various projects. And then the other we just received from National Trust African American Cultural Heritage Action Fund. And with them, it's a 2-year program that we will be working with individuals from National Trust on. We have our first meeting Tuesday, so I will know then exactly what. But it'll mostly be on planning and capacity building and program development. So that's all.
Thank you.
We keep applying.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, some of that work may impact how many residencies or whatever, but I'd say, Laverne, is it true to, if people are interested, they could email the foundation and just...
Yes, jjw1826@aol.com, please.
And if anyone wants that information, you could also email me here at BEMA, and we could disseminate it. So if there are a couple of other questions, we could take them. Leah, yes?
I'm quite interested in the global patterning concepts, and I've been studying them since I lived in various places in my life. I've been a global citizen, and seeing this concept, 4 came up in all of the examples, patterning, vegetable and bark and seed dyes, and materials like copper and stone and various things that bend, tin and wire and copper wire, tin wire, gold wire, silver wire. All of those things I have seen from humanity, and I've been following. Have any of you spoken to one another about these concepts or thought about working together to discuss these human concepts of the dyes and the patterns and the materials of different things that you're using, like copper and stone and wires and all of that?
Can I give it a try? I'll start out. That's a great question. And, I don't know if we have specifically talked about pattern and material and stuff, but we are makers. So material is important. And that was a common theme. What we were talking about leading up to this is, and your, soulful connection to Dr. Washington and the use of material and repetition. So you're tap, 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 and his stone carving, chip, 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 chisel. Yeah. Yes. And then in my case, what I showed you was the twine and the knotting, and I had a video of I mean, I forgot about it, but it's like knotting the twine. That's over and over 36,000 times. And then, Esther, all the different materials you've used. So I think that because we're all makers and it's important, our hand is important in touching the material. And so, whereas we haven't specifically talked about, I mean, I've been to your talk, so I've learned about, your process, and, you're just everywhere. In your mediums, and I love it. I love how much you explore in your inquisitiveness. So it's a commonality, I think, that it resonated with us. And as well as that tap, 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 it's a meditative thing. You go into this meditation of that repetition. Yeah.
I want to elaborate on that. Yeah, I can see where you're going with that, sir, about globally. When I think of building, when I think about communities, building communities with what we do as makers, how we use our work to inform the community, and allow the community to also share in their experiences, their stories as well, because we are all interconnected. So I can see how all three of us could build upon that with the work that we do in a show, in an exhibit. Right?
Pete, could I just say, I am going to be showing Stewart's work in a solo show at Asia Pacific Cultural Center next year. So tune in, and we'll announce that. So,
Invite us all.
yes.
Thank you. Thank you, APCC.
I'd just like to say, in terms of connections, I've known Leah, who just asked that great question, since my days at Pratt Fine Arts Center. Just found out from her today that she took a art class from Dr. Washington. Was it age 5? Yeah.
Are there any more questions for us?
I was just going to comment that one of the unique aspects is that you take materials from the Washington House and are inspired by them. I'm constantly amazed. All different kinds of materials that were just lying around. And my favorite, of course, is Marita Dingus using the sewing machine to make shoes.
Thank you very much.